Hey, what's up, fam? So I wanted to come on real quick and just have a deep intellectual conversation and philosophize about fear. Who taught us to be afraid of the unseen? Who taught us to be afraid of spiritual science? Who taught us to be afraid of magic? Who taught us the concept of fear at all? Because I want to go back to the beginning of time. I want to go back to creation, right? The world was created out of love. And that was the primary energy. That is the primary energy of creation, is love. So where did fear come from? How did fear come into the equation? I sit and I think about this often, and I don't believe that there is truly a thing called fear. I believe there is a thing called distorted love, because all of creation is built on the foundation of love. And there is a however that comes after that, but let's just start with that piece. All of creation is built and founded on love. So where did hate come from? Who taught us the concept of hate? When did that come into the equation, into the picture? Not only hate, but fear. Because as far as my spirit tells me, there was no fear. There was no fear at the onset of creation. When you have humans and animals, lions and all kind of predator type animals now living in harmony and in coexistence together throughout certain periods of time on the planet. So where did fear come from? Where did hate come from? When did our ancestors become afraid of spiritual science, of astrology, of tarot, of mysticism, of plant medicine? There's so much fear embedded into us. Why? Who benefits from us being fearful of these things? Could it be our oppressors? Could it be the oppressors that have historically maintained their superiority and their power because they've been able to dissect and understand at a very small degree what we were already created in wholeness to be? Majestic, spiritual, divine beings. We live in the third dimension, which consists of mental, physical, and spiritual realities and realms. But they're shutting us off from the mental realm by taking away our mental powers with AI. They want us to outsource our mental capacity, our mental powers, give it over to AI, right? They've already shut us off from the spiritual realm because they've diluted and watered down our understanding of spirituality with their religious texts that were built to do just that, to give them the power, the little bit of power and knowledge that they have of spirituality. They get to hold on to that while we get to hold on to nothing. Our eyes are completely covered, and because we're in fear. We're in fear of the information, the power, the knowledge that our ancestors possessed as it relates to astrology. As above, so within. And we're in fear of nature. We fear the weather. We fear the plants. We let them tell us what's dangerous, what's not dangerous. We fear the spiritual sciences. They tell us, oh, they've brainwashed us in our religious texts to believe that, magic, spiritual science is demonic. When they're the actual demonic ones that are using the spiritual sciences to enslave and oppress humanity and the planet. How is that so? How can we not see through that? How can we just willfully give away our power? I know how. Because fear was introduced at some point in this equation. And our ancestors bought into it for some reason. Our ancestors were led off the path of true spirituality, true connection with the source energy of all creation, of everything. They were led astray and led off that path. Because fear found its way in somehow, some way, somehow. Right? And so people started to become afraid of their power. People started to become afraid of their magic. Africans have always been known for magic, for deep spirituality. The African continent is the most spiritual continent and the most spiritual people in existence. The most magical people in existence. And where do you think that magic came from? Where do you think their abilities to tap into the deep spiritual science of the universe came from? The only somebody race of people that I know that had that organic ability to tap into deep spiritual science is Africans. And Africans were told and made to believe that they should be afraid. I don't know how the hell this unfolded and transpired, but the only thing that I could think of was it came through fear. They were somehow convinced that they needed to fear their spiritual powers and gifts and abilities, their magic. Same thing with the Native Americans. The Native Americans lived here on these lands in harmony with one another, in harmony and balance with nature, same as the Africans. And they did this in a deep spiritual way. And they left the evidence for us in tombs, in caves, in artwork that predates and goes back to hundreds of thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. They left the references for us to follow. And look at where we are. As a whole, powerless, fearful of the spiritual sciences that empowered our ancestors. So who taught you that fear, family? That's all I'm trying to figure out. Where did that come from? And why do you buy into the narrative of fear? Fear is not real. Fear is a distorted energy of love. Okay? Our oppressors were so fascinated by our powers, by our natural and organic powers. They're so fascinated and in love with the African man and woman, because we are unmatched, unlike anything else on this planet. We have natural gifts, skills, and abilities. Our DNA, our 12 strands of DNA, there is no junk DNA. There is no junk DNA. That's where our true magic and spirituality lies. But these people want us to be in fear of that. They want you to feel like your true spiritual science is tied to demonic energy in some way. They want you to fear opening up your pineal gland, seeing into the unseen realm, the spiritual realm. They want you to be afraid of that. This is where our ancestors dwelled, because we dwell in the mental, spiritual, and physical planes. These three realms, they're intermixed and intermingled. But if you have a lens of fear covering your ability to see into the spiritual realm, then those who aren't afraid can use the magic of the spiritual realm, the magic of the unseen, to oppress, to suppress, to enslave. If you don't want your power, they don't take it. They'll take it and they'll use it to serve themselves, how they've been serving themselves for the past 2,000 years. If you don't want your power, if you want to be afraid of your power, then they'll take it. And that's always been the goal. To shut us off, to close us off, to make us fearful, to use any and every tactic. Now we got Africans convincing other Africans to be afraid of magic. The same magic that the source creator instilled in them in their 12 strands of DNA. These same capabilities that the source creator thought was beautiful to share with humanity. Because these are some of the same components that the source creator has. These magical gifts, skills, and abilities. The same gifts, skills, and abilities that were used throughout time to wield energy in a way that can build unthinkable structures. People still can't figure out how the pyramids were built. If our oppressors were so intelligent and powerful, how come they're not building pyramids? And the technological capabilities that come with the pyramids, right? Those pyramids were built by Africans that have that 12 strength, that have those gifts of deep mathematics, deep science, deep spiritual knowledge. All of that ties in from the spiritual realm to the physical realm to the mental realm. It all ties in and works interchangeably together. And our ancestors knew it, lived it, embodied it. But now it's fashionable in 2025. It's fashionable in 2025 for us to willfully and wantingly give our power, our mental power away to artificial intelligence, which cannot hold a candle to divine intelligence. The intelligence that built the pyramids, the intelligence that is coded in your DNA and coded in my DNA, so that you can tap into your spiritual side, your mental side, and your physical side of higher levels of existence. You're operating at a low level frequency right now, which is why you can't tap into those gifts. But they lie within you and they are dormant and they are able to be activated. But you have to know that and be aware of that first. You have gifts, skills, and abilities that lie within you that are able to be activated. And it all depends on what level and frequency you operate at. Once you train your physical vessel to operate at a certain frequency, then you unlock your ability to go into the spiritual realm and to see in the spiritual realm and maneuver in the spiritual realm like you do in the physical realm. This is what our ancestors were able to do. Some of them were more spiritually adept than others. And that's just the way it is, because source isn't going to make us all the same. We all operate at different frequencies. We all have different gifts, skills, and abilities. But humanity cannot tap into the frequency necessary to unlock those gifts, skills, and abilities until we break free of the chains of fear. All of the things that they taught you to be afraid of. Let's use this as an example. We know fire is hot, right? We know there is a dualistic energy, fire, and then the opposite of fire is cold, right? Hot, cold. We know and understand heat. We know that if we touch heat, we might get burned. That's not to be fearful of heat. We know that if we touch a certain degree of the cold, then it will freeze us. That's not to make us afraid of the cold. Our ancestors were not afraid of fire. Have you ever seen anybody put fire down, a stick of fire down in their throat? There's no fear there. You ever see anybody or hear about anybody stories of people walking over hot, fiery coals? There's no fear there. There's the intellectual ability to harness the energy that surrounds fire, the energy that surrounds coal, and to use that energy to build and wield that energy in a way to co-create with the reality. Not out of fear, but out of understanding of the energy. There is nothing to be fearful of in existence. Fear is not real. The only thing there is love. When somebody tells you, oh, I got haters and these people hate me and blah, 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 blah. And if a person act like they hate you, it ain't hate, my love. There is no such thing as hate. The only thing it is distorted love. That person may feel deep, deep resentment and jealousy inside of them because there is something about you that they love so much that makes them feel insecure and inferior. And so they sink down into a low vibrational energy of jealousy. But that ain't hate, that's distorted love. Envy, jealousy, resentment, all of these low vibrations are distorted energies of love, baby. There is no such thing as hate. Fear is distorted ignorance to me. People fear what they don't understand. And so because we've been led astray from understanding, our ancestors weren't here to teach us the way their ancestors were there to teach them. Generation after generation after generation, how to be a shaman, how to read the stars, how to navigate with the stars, when the best time to plant is, when the best time to harvest is, what seeds are best to plant when the best time is to work with the moon's energy, to create with the moon, to release and destroy with the moon. When a woman is, at her most prime time to create and destroy based on what her womb activity is doing. When we go through these menstruation cycles and we go through cleansing and releasing, that's not for naught, baby. All of this is energy. All of this is energy to co-create with. So I ask you again, who taught you to be fearful? Who taught you fear? Because there's nothing in creation, no weather, no man, no energy, nothing in creation is worthy of your fear. Fear has to be changed and transmuted into a desire to understand, into a desire to connect and understand more about the energy. Source didn't create anything wrong or bad. Source gave us free will. And some people have lost their way with their free will by following their ego. Some way, somehow down the line, we became disconnected in our ability to manage our ego, to manage the voice of the ego. We fell into those low vibrational energies of jealousy, envy, greed, racing to be the best, racing to steal what somebody else has. We fell into that energy of misusing the powers that were embedded in our DNA. We fell into distortion. And so Source allowed us to fall out of alignment with our powers. Source allowed what is now. We weren't good stewards. We fell into darkness because we weren't good stewards of the light, of the blessings that Source naturally gave us. So with universal law, there is a cause for every effect. So yes, we have free will, but we also have consequences that come with that free will. If we use our free will to not be good stewards of our gifts and our talents, then we got to pay the consequences of what comes after that. And look where we are now. Look where the collective of humanity is in now. It has fallen into now, into a deep, deep place of darkness, right? But we don't have to stay here. It's up to each person to use their free will to decide if they're going to activate their 10 strands of DNA and come into alignment with their God energy, with their God consciousness, with spirituality, with the realm of the unseen, with these gifts, powers, abilities, supernatural gifts. Just think about that as you go along in your daily life. Who taught me to be afraid? Who taught me to fear my true self? Who taught me to be afraid of what my Source Creator created me to be in fullness and totality? Who does it benefit for me to be afraid of spiritual science? These spiritual sciences. I would ask you and submit for you to connect with Source Creator, Universe, God, Allah, Buddha, Yeshua, Yahweh, whoever it is that is your guide, and get a better understanding about who it is, who taught you to fear these things. Because if you look at where we are now and we were then, it's a completely different picture. Completely different picture. And we're outsourcing our intelligence. We're outsourcing our spirituality. We're outsourcing our physical health to the beast of Babylon. So, all right, fam, that's the message.